You walk out into your backyard on a Saturday morning, coffee in hand, the grass still wet from the dew. You are feeling pretty good about the weekend ahead. You bend down, run your fingers through a patch near the edge of the patio, and you notice it again. That same yellow tint creeping in, those same thin, hungry-looking blades you spent $40 trying to fix 3 weeks ago with a bag of premium fertilizer from the garden center. And here is what is so frustrating about this whole cycle. You spend the money, you spread the granules, you water it in exactly like the back of the bag tells you to. For about 10 days, everything looks incredible, and then it all fades right back to the same tired, patchy lawn you started with, year after year, spring after spring. Most people are doing this completely wrong. You buy a synthetic fertilizer, you dump it on a lawn that has no biological life in the soil to actually use it, then you water it heavily because you think more is better. The result is that nothing ever truly changes. Your lawn becomes addicted to the next bag. And your wallet keeps getting lighter every single month of the growing season. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly why that expensive bag of fertilizer is one of the worst investments you can make for your lawn. I am going to break this into two completely different angles so you understand the full picture. First, we will tackle why store-bought synthetic fertilizer is actively damaging the soil beneath your feet. Then we will look at what to do instead using materials you almost certainly already have at home. Finally, I will give you one permanent approach that will keep your lawn green and thick without you ever buying another bag again. Part 1. The synthetic fertilizer trap. This is the version of the problem that hits 90% of homeowners first, so we have to start here. What you instinctively do when your lawn looks weak is drive to the hardware store, grab the bag with the highest first number on the label, usually a 30 or a 32 for nitrogen, and spread it across the yard with a broadcast spreader. It feels productive, it feels satisfying, you can see the little blue, green prills sitting on the soil, and you tell yourself you are feeding your grass. But here is the truth about what is actually happening beneath your feet. A synthetic fertilizer at 30% nitrogen is essentially a salt, and when you water it in, that salt dissolves into the top 4 inches of your soil and creates an osmotic environment that is hostile to the microbes living down there. A healthy lawn soil should contain something on the order of 1 billion bacteria per single gram, plus fungi, protozoa, and earthworms. Those organisms are what actually convert organic matter into the nutrients your grass roots can absorb. When you hit them with a concentrated salt-based fertilizer, you kill off a significant percentage of that population within 72 hours. The grass gets a quick green flush from the soluble nitrogen, but the underlying biology that feeds your lawn for free all year round is now crippled, so the grass burns through that easy nitrogen in about 14 to 21 days. Because the soil life is damaged, there is nothing left to feed it naturally, so it crashes, and you reach for another bag. Here is the reframe. You are not feeding your lawn, you are feeding an addiction, and every bag makes the next bag more necessary. So what do you do instead? The simplest correct method is to start applying a thin layer of finely screened compost across your lawn, no more than 1/4 of an inch thick, what the pros call a top dress. You do this once in the spring and once in the early fall. That compost delivers slow-release nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and tens of millions of live microbes per teaspoon, which immediately begin rebuilding the biological engine in your soil. The next step up is to start mulch mowing, which means removing the bag from your mower, letting the clippings fall back onto the lawn every single time you cut. Grass clippings are roughly 4% nitrogen by dry weight. Over a full season, mulch mowing returns the equivalent of 1 full fertilizer application back into your soil for free. The most advanced version of the simple approach is to brew or buy a compost tea. Spray it across the lawn with a pump sprayer once a month during the growing season. This inoculates the soil with even more biology and accelerates recovery. And here is the universal mini prevention tip for part 1. Stop bagging your clippings, starting with your very next mow, because every bag you haul to the curb is nitrogen you are paying to throw away. Part 2, and this is a completely different problem, technically distinct from the fertilizer trap. Even homeowners who never buy synthetic fertilizer still get this wrong, and it ruins their lawn from a different direction entirely. I am talking about soil compaction and the dead thatch layer sitting between your grass and the dirt. The universal mistake most people make here is that they assume if the grass looks bad, the answer is something you put on top. In reality, the answer is almost always something you have to do to what is underneath. The catastrophic consequence of ignoring this is that water and oxygen physically cannot reach the root zone. Over 6 to 8 weeks of summer, heat your lawn develops shallow roots, brown patches start to spread. By August, you are looking at a lawn that no amount of watering or feeding can save because the inputs literally cannot penetrate the surface. Compacted soil with a thick thatch layer can reduce water infiltration by up to 70%. This means most of what you spray from your hose is running off into the street or evaporating before it ever touches a root. So here are the methods from cheapest to most specialized. Method 1, manual core aeration. You can rent a manual or pull-behind core aerator from any tool rental shop for around $40 for a half day. You walk it across your lawn, pulling small plugs of soil about 3 inches deep every 4 to 6 inches. Leave the plugs on the surface. They will break down within 2 weeks and feed the soil as they go. The mechanical reason this works is that those holes give water, oxygen, and organic matter direct access to the root zone. The surrounding compacted soil naturally collapses and loosens into the open spaces over the following month. You do this once a year in early fall for cool season grasses or late spring for warm season grasses. The difference in your lawn within 30 days is honestly dramatic. Method 2, dethatching with a stiff rake or a rented power rake. Thatch is the layer of dead stems and roots that builds up between the green blades and the soil surface. Once it gets thicker than 1/2 an inch, it acts like a sponge that holds water in the wrong place and starves the roots. You can knock this back yourself with a heavy thatching rake on a smaller lawn. Rent a power dethatcher for about $60 on anything bigger than 1,000 square feet. You run it across the lawn in 2 directions, rake up the debris, and your lawn will look terrible for about a week. Then it comes back thicker than it has been in years, because the new grass shoots can finally reach sunlight and the soil can finally breathe. Method 3, and this is the most specialized, liquid soil conditioning with humic acid and a wetting agent. You can buy a concentrate for around $25 that treats 5,000 square feet. You mix it into a hose end sprayer and you apply it after aerating. Humic acid chemically loosens compacted clay particles at the molecular level by binding to them and changing their charge structure. The wetting agent breaks the surface tension of the soil so water actually penetrates instead of beating off. Used together after aeration, these 2 products do in one season what would otherwise take 3 years of manual work. Part 3, prevention. Here is the one universal action that prevents both of these problems from ever coming back, and you only need to do it once a year. Apply a 1/4 inch top dressing of screened compost across your entire lawn every fall, ideally right after you aerate. The mechanical reason this works is that the compost feeds the soil biology. The biology breaks down the thatch layer naturally before it can rebuild. The organic matter physically prevents the soil from recompacting because it holds particles loosely apart. The slow-release nutrients keep your grass fed for months without any synthetic input. The exact material you want is a finely screened, fully composted leaf mold or mushroom compost, which you can buy in bulk for around $30 to $40 per cubic yard delivered. That is enough to top dress about 1,000 square feet. You apply it by dumping small piles across the lawn and then dragging a stiff push broom, the back of a leaf rake across the surface to work it down between the grass blades until you can barely see it. Doing this one task every fall will save you somewhere between $100 and $200 per year in fertilizer, plus the cost of weed killers. Patch repair products you will no longer need because a thick, biologically active lawn outcompetes weeds on its own. Now, once you stop buying synthetic fertilizer and you start feeding your soil instead, you are going to run into a new problem within about 6 to 8 weeks. I want to be very clear about this because almost nobody warns you. As your soil biology wakes up and your grass starts growing thicker, faster than it ever has, you are going to notice that your mowing frequency goes up. Worse, you are going to start seeing certain weeds that were dormant suddenly take advantage of the richer soil before your grass fully fills in, especially clover, crabgrass, and broadleaf invaders along the edges. If that is the situation you are about to face, or if you are already seeing those first weeds creeping in along the driveway, the fence line, drop a comment below right now and just tell me which weed is the worst offender in your yard. The next video I am putting out walks through exactly how to eliminate those specific weeds without any chemical herbicides, without damaging the soil biology you just spent all this effort rebuilding. Subscribe so you do not miss it, because if you skip that next step, Every bit of work you just learned today gets undone by August, and I do not want that to happen to you. I will see you in the next one. Before I let you go, though, I want to circle back and give you a few more pieces of the puzzle. I have been getting questions in the comments for the last 2 years that tell me there are some very specific stumbling blocks people hit when they make this switch. I would rather you hear them from me right now than learn them the hard way in July when your lawn is halfway through the transition. You are second guessing everything. The first thing I want to address is the historical context. I think it helps to understand how we got into this mess in the first place. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, the kind sitting in the bag at the big box store, traces back to a process developed by Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch between 1909 and 1913 inches Germany. The Haber-Bosch process was originally scaled up to produce munitions during the First World War. After 1945, the surplus nitrogen production capacity in the United States was redirected toward agriculture and, eventually, residential lawns. By 1955, companies like Scott's were marketing weed and feed products to suburban homeowners. By the early 1970s, the average American lawn was receiving roughly 4 pounds of synthetic nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per year. That number has barely changed in 50 years. Yet during that same window, soil organic matter in residential yards has dropped from an average of around 5% down to under 2% in most suburban developments. That is not an accident. That is the direct consequence of feeding the plant and starving the soil for 2 generations. Now consider the runoff side of this equation, because it is not just about your wallet or your weekend. The United States Geological Survey has been tracking nitrogen and phosphorus loading in the Mississippi River Basin since the 1970s. Residential lawn fertilizer is now estimated to contribute somewhere between 9% and 14% of the nutrient load that feeds the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, a hypoxic area that swelled to over 6,000 square miles in the summer of 2017. Every spring, when you spread that bag and then a thunderstorm rolls in 2 days later, a measurable percentage of what you just paid for runs off your lawn into the storm drain, into the watershed, and eventually into a river system. The grass never sees most of it. You paid for it, the ecosystem absorbs it, and the cycle repeats next spring. The second thing I want you to know is that the transition timeline is not always linear. In the first 3 to 5 weeks after you stop applying synthetic fertilizer and you start with compost, molasses, and a quality biological amendment, your lawn may actually look slightly worse before it looks better. The color can shift to a paler green, the blades may feel softer underfoot, you might notice a faint earthy smell after watering, almost like a forest floor after rain. That smell, by the way, is geosmin, a compound produced by soil actinomycetes. It is one of the clearest signals you will ever get that your underground biology is coming back online. Do not panic during those first weeks. Do not run back to the store and grab a bag of quick-release nitrogen to green things up. If you do, you will kill the fungal networks you just started cultivating. You will be back at square one, lighter in the wallet and no further along than you were in March.